The morning light filtered through the glass walls of Sterling Enterprises, painting golden streaks across the marble floor. Employees walked briskly, clutching coffees and files, their heels echoing in rhythm. No one paid attention to the man quietly mopping near the elevators. An old blue uniform, slightly torn at the cuff, shoes worn out. His name tag read Daniel. Daniel had been working there for 7 years, the invisible janitor who appeared before dawn and vanished after dusk. His hair was streaked with grey, his face lined from years of quiet endurance. But what no one knew was that every night after his shift, Daniel went home to a tiny apartment where an old piano stood against a cracked wall. It was out of tune, keys yellowed by time, but when his fingers touched it, music came alive. The kind of music that could make you feel things you didn't know you carried. He used to play in small bars before his wife fell ill. When the hospital bills came, he sold everything, his guitar, his car, even his dreams, just to keep her alive. But cancer didn't bargain. After she was gone, he never played for an audience again, only for himself and for her memory. One Friday afternoon, Sterling Enterprises buzzed with excitement. The annual company gala was that evening, a luxurious event where executives showed off their success and charm. There was champagne, music, and a stage for performances by the staff. Daniel, of course, wasn't invited. He would be there after it was over, cleaning the floors, picking up the champagne glasses, making sure the place sparkled before Monday. But fate had other plans. That morning, the event manager panicked. The pianist they hired for the gala cancelled last minute. Food poisoning. The CEO, Richard Sterling, was furious. "We can't have a gala without music," he barked. Someone laughed nervously, pointing at Daniel near the back of the hall. "Maybe the janitor can play." Laughter rippled through the group. Daniel looked up, unsure whether to smile or bow his head. But the CEO turned toward him, curious. "You play?" he asked, half mocking. Daniel hesitated. "A little, sir, just for myself." The CEO smirked. "Well, looks like you're our backup tonight. Don't worry, it's just background music. Try not to embarrass us." The staff chuckled. Daniel simply nodded. That night, as the ballroom filled with guests in elegant suits and glittering dresses, Daniel sat quietly at the piano, hands trembling. He hadn't played in years. He could feel every eye on him, some amused, some pitying. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Then he began to play. At first, the notes were soft, hesitant, almost fragile. Then something inside him broke open. The melody flowed, rich and full, carrying sorrow and love, loss and hope. It filled the air like light itself. The laughter faded. Conversation stopped. Even the waiters froze mid-step. Richard Sterling, the CEO, felt his chest tighten. He had heard music before, but not like this. Each note seemed to reach inside him, pulling at something buried deep. Memories of his mother's laughter, his father's silence. The years he had chased success and forgotten what truly mattered. When the final note lingered in the air, there was complete silence. Then came the sound of applause, thunderous, genuine, rising like a wave. Tears glistened in more than one pair of eyes. Daniel stood, unsure how to react. He gave a small bow and whispered, "Thank you." But Richard Sterling wasn't done. He walked to the stage, microphone in hand, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the man you just heard isn't a concert pianist. He's our janitor." Gasps filled the room. Richard continued, voice trembling slightly. "In my years as CEO, I've met people who talked louder than they listened, who shined brighter than they felt. But this man, he reminded me tonight that real talent, real heart doesn't wear a suit." Daniel looked down, embarrassed, tears gathering in his eyes. After the gala, Richard asked him to stay. The hall was quiet again. The CEO poured 2 glasses of water and said, "That was extraordinary. Where did you learn to play like that?" Daniel smiled faintly. "My mother taught me when I was little. I used to play for my wife when she was sick. She said my music made her forget the pain." Richard looked away, jaw tight. "My wife used to say something similar. Before I lost her, too." For a moment the two men sat in silence, two strangers bound by grief and unexpected understanding. Then Richard said, "Daniel, how long have you worked here?" 7 years, sir. And how much do we pay you?" "Enough to live, sir," Daniel replied softly. Richard shook his head. "Not enough to live, just enough to survive. That changes tomorrow." The next morning, the company email stunned everyone. The CEO announced that Daniel would head a new department, a community music program funded by the company to bring art to underprivileged kids. When Daniel arrived at work, his mop and bucket were gone, replaced by a small plaque outside a bright new room. The Sterling Music Initiative, directed by Daniel H. Carter. Tears filled his eyes as he stepped inside. There was a brand new piano gleaming in the morning light. That afternoon, Richard walked in with a little boy holding his hand, his son. "This is the man I told you about," Richard said, kneeling down. "The one who reminded me your mom would have wanted us to keep music in the house." The boy smiled shyly. "Can you play, Mr. Daniel?" Daniel nodded. "Only if you promise to play with me someday." The boy grinned. "Deal." And as Daniel's fingers began to dance across the keys once more, the sound filled the halls, not just of a company, but of hearts rediscovering kindness, humility, and hope. Weeks later, during a company meeting, Richard addressed his staff. "We hire people for their skills," he said, "but sometimes we forget to see their souls. That man, that janitor, taught me something no business school ever could. Never judge a book by its cover, because you might miss the most beautiful story written inside." In that moment, everyone stood and clapped, not for the CEO, not for the company, but for the quiet janitor who had reminded them that humanity still mattered. And somewhere, Daniel smiled, not because he was finally seen, but because he knew that his music, born from love and loss, had finally reached where it was always meant to go, straight into someone's heart.